Imagine living in a city where almost every resident is female. Nobody gets paid, thousands work until their bodies wear out, and the queen is not actually in charge. That city exists inside a honeybee colony. In the United States, millions of these insects quietly support farms, gardens, wild plants, and food production. But the strangest part is not the honey, it is the system behind it. A honeybee colony behaves less like a crowd of insects and more like one living superorganism. To understand how it works, you have to follow one bee from egg to death, then zoom out and see the society she serves. Every honeybee begins as an egg. The queen places a tiny egg inside a wax cell. She may lay well over 1,000 eggs per day during peak conditions. After about 3 days, the egg hatches into a larva. At this stage, the future bee looks nothing like an adult. She is small, pale, legless, and extremely hungry. Nurse bees feed her repeatedly as she grows. Then something remarkable happens. Diet helps determine destiny. Larvae destined to become queens receive abundant royal jelly throughout development. Worker-destined larvae receive royal jelly early, then transition to a different food mixture. That nutritional difference changes development dramatically. A queen and a worker are both female. They can come from fertilized eggs with the same basic genetic system. Yet one becomes a fertile reproductive female, while the other usually becomes a sterile worker. Same species, different developmental pathway. After the larval stage, workers seal the cell with wax. Inside, the larva transforms into a pupa. Legs form, wings develop, eyes darken, the body reorganizes. For a worker bee, the journey from egg to adult takes about 21 days. Then she chews through the wax cap and enters a society already in motion. And she does not immediately fly outside. Young workers usually begin with jobs inside the hive. They clean cells. They help tend developing brood. They feed larvae. They groom nestmates. As they age, their duties often change. Their wax glands become active, allowing them to build and repair comb. Some workers process nectar. Others store pollen. Some ventilate the colony by fanning their wings. Later, many become guards near the entrance. And eventually, older workers often become foragers. This age-related job progression is called temporal polyethism. It sounds complicated. In practice, it means the colony has a flexible workforce. But the schedule is not rigid. If the colony suddenly needs more nurses, some workers can adjust. If foragers disappear, other bees may begin foraging earlier. The system responds to demand. That flexibility is one reason honeybee colonies can survive rapidly changing conditions. Now meet the most misunderstood bee in the colony. The queen. Calling her a queen makes humans imagine a tiny monarch issuing commands. She does not. She does not create work schedules. She does not direct traffic. She does not point at a worker and say, "You, pollen department." Her main biological role is reproduction. After mating early in adult life, usually with multiple drones during mating flights, she can store sperm inside a specialized organ called the spermatheca. She may use that stored sperm for years. When laying an egg, she can usually control whether it is fertilized. A fertilized egg develops into a female, either a worker or potentially a queen. An unfertilized egg develops into a male drone. Yes, male honeybees normally have no father. They develop from unfertilized eggs through a system called haplodiploidy. That sounds like science fiction, but it is standard honeybee biology. Drones have one main reproductive function: mating with queens from other colonies. They do not collect nectar. They do not gather pollen. They do not build comb. They also lack the stinger workers have. From a human office perspective, their job description looks suspiciously short. But genetically, mating is essential. A queen that mates with multiple drones increases genetic diversity among her worker offspring, which can benefit colony resilience. And reproduction becomes even more dramatic when the colony itself reproduces. A strong colony may eventually become crowded. Workers begin raising new queens. Then the old queen leaves with thousands of workers in a swarm. For anyone watching, it can look like an insect emergency. A huge cloud of bees suddenly fills the air. But swarming is usually a natural colony-level reproductive process. The swarm temporarily gathers, while scout bees search for a new home. And those scouts face an extraordinary problem. They must choose one location for thousands of individuals. No central commander makes the decision. Scouts inspect possible nest sites and return to communicate using movements known as waggle dances. Better sites can attract stronger recruitment. More scouts investigate them. Competition develops between options. Eventually, the group reaches enough agreement to move. It is collective decision-making without a boardroom, a ballot box, or a motivational consultant. Inside the hive, communication is everywhere. A returning forager can use the waggle dance to communicate information about the direction and distance of a valuable food source. Other bees can then leave the colony and search in that area. Odors also matter. Honeybees use pheromones for communication, involving colony identity, alarm, reproduction, orientation, and social regulation. Even the queen influences colony behavior, partly through chemical signals. But again, influence is not the same as command. The colony is decentralized. Thousands of small interactions create large-scale organization. Then there is honey. Flowers produce nectar, a sugary liquid. Foragers collect it and carry it back in a specialized storage organ, often called the honey stomach. Back at the colony, nectar is transferred between bees and deposited into comb cells. Bees add enzymes and reduce its water content. They fan their wings, increasing airflow and helping moisture evaporate. Eventually, concentrated nectar becomes honey. Honey is not dessert for bees. It is stored energy. That matters because flowering plants are not available year-round. In much of the United States, winter can shut down major nectar sources. A colony needs reserves. During cold weather, honeybees form a cluster inside the hive. They generate heat through muscle activity and move within the cluster to access stored food. Unlike many individual insects, the colony can maintain a remarkably controlled internal environment. Workers even regulate temperature around developing brood. When the nest becomes hot, bees can increase ventilation. They can also bring water into the hive and spread droplets, creating evaporative cooling. The colony is managing climate without thermostats. And now we reach the job honeybees perform that matters far beyond the hive. Pollination. When a bee visits flowers for nectar or pollen, grains of pollen can stick to her body. As she moves between flowers of the same plant species, some pollen can reach reproductive structures in another flower. That transfer helps many flowering plants reproduce. For American agriculture, managed honeybees are especially important pollinators for crops including almonds, apples, blueberries, melons, and others. But there is an important distinction. Honeybees are not the only pollinators. The United States also has thousands of native bee species, plus butterflies, moths, flies, beetles, birds, and other animals that contribute to pollination. Protecting pollination means thinking beyond one famous insect. Honeybees themselves also face serious pressures. Parasites such as varroa mites can weaken colonies and spread viruses. Poor nutrition can make survival harder. Pesticide exposure can create additional risks depending on chemical, dose, timing, and route of exposure. Disease, weather, habitat conditions, queen problems, and management practices can also interact. There is rarely one simple villain. That complexity is exactly why bee biology matters. Because once you understand the colony, the honey stops being the main story. The real story is coordination. A worker may live only weeks during the busy season, yet her actions connect to a system that can persist far longer than she does. She cleans, she feeds, she builds, she guards, she navigates miles of landscape. She communicates locations she cannot physically show to another bee. She helps control temperature. She helps produce food she may never personally consume. And she does all of this without understanding the colony the way you do. No individual bee contains the entire plan. The plan emerges from thousands of individuals following local signals, changing roles, sharing information, and responding to conditions. That is the payoff hidden inside the hive. A honeybee colony is not impressive because one queen controls everything. It is impressive because nobody does. And somehow, from countless tiny decisions, a functioning society appears.